Så ja. So welcome to this, it is not easy to stand in front. I would like you to have this event here.
Oh, okay.
Come closer. That's why I was thinking just move this a bit more up. Or you can come closer, you know. It's not disturbing. So, for me it's easier to represent yourself. It's easier for me. On my right side we have here
Ulf is my name.
Okay. Working as a writer.
No, I'm a natural scientist.
Okay.
Mostly environmental chemistry.
Ah, chemistry. Okay, but you wrote some books which are interesting.
I hope so. A couple of them.
Okay, but one was really interesting. You know, it was about. Did I miss something?
Geopolitics.
Geopolitics, yes.
Oh yes, yes. A couple of years ago, a friend and I published a book. It's the title say most of the book. US as a word deputy or sheriff.
Okay.
And then I also wrote a couple of books on my subject.
Okay, which is your science education. And on my left side, I have Georgia.
Okay.
George.
Yeah, my name is George. I'm doing my research as a part of my thesis for my master program in international journalism in Stockholm. And it's kind of related, for me, movie and especially movies related to Balkan. It's kind of related to my research because I'm doing about disinformation campaign and fake news here in Sweden. And Balkan War was one of the main things happened. It was one of the most topic. There was a lot of two side or three side of the stories, but only the delivery depend on one side of the story. And the Western perspective to Balkan War, it was the dominating perspective in the West, and Sweden is part of it. And it was really interesting for me to see. I met this amazing director before a few years, and I see what I was looking to it. It's another perspective of the Balkan War with those movies, and even they are not they are not too popular in the West, but actually they represent that phenomenon in journalists. We are looking to it. We need the two sides of the story. Like nowadays, we also in the West, we have only one side of the Ukrainian-Russian war. We only adapt the Ukrainian perspective. We are not talking who is invaded or invasion, but we need those kind of stories to have the real journalists to be neutral. And for me, this kind of festival, it's give the chance to have the complete picture of what's happening in Balkan. So. I congratulate already. I don't have the chance to watch all the movies, but I have some clue from previous year.
Yes, actually I was also surprised, but when we start to speak outside there, when we were outside, that you at once understood the idea behind it. It's like this story we have not here, and I was like, okay. And please, I'm back here. You are also following our festival.
Yes, part of it.
Yes.
I saw, I think it was 3 movies last year too.
Yes, which is for me interesting. I know that Goran Brankovic, which is a friend of the festival and your friend, introduced you as somebody who could be very interesting in the subject. Why? Why do you think this festival is like important?
To be very frank, I have seen the most Balkan film is Emil Kusturica. And for these festivals I have seen only 5, I think. So it's
okay. It's better than
it's a small. It's too small to make any judgment about it. I remember the film last year, which was about a man woke up in the morning with a Gloria stuck to his head. And this man was certainly not a saint. and the Gloria followed him, and he went into politics. And the Gloria was apparently very embarrassing for him, because his practice and the Gloria on his head. So that was a very, very good film. And also the film we saw in Friday, The Fringes, perhaps not political, but it was very fascinating. It's a very special thing about The Fringes, but it was very good, because it took a whole situation, a social situation, from the manufacturing of fringes to people using them and how they react to the fringes. So that was very good, very interesting. I also saw the film about the dystopia. People, that's a problem with theater and movies that rely mostly on speaking. Speaking films, when you speak a lot, or theater, is very, very difficult. I've been playing amateur theater for many, many years, and for a couple of years ago, a Swedish economist journalist made a theater that put up on the theater in Stockholm, and it was about banking. What do a bank do? And it was a very good idea. And I contacted him and asked if he could play the plays. Yes, please do it. And we read the play. It was too difficult for us as amateur to play, because speaking, usually in theater or film, you act, and by the meeting of people and reaction is the base of a story. Speaking, just speaking, well, you could do it, but it's very, very difficult to make a good film. And I think the film on Friday was not so good. So I have too little to say about Balkan film. My knowledge is too small, actually.
Too small.
So
okay.
I'm a bad panelist.
Okay, no, you're good, you're great, because you are watching from your perspective, and you are quite, let's say, common Swedish. So this is also very important to public for us. But if we take this fringe, also this rese, or fransar på svenska, it's actually deeply political. Because the French is going through the whole former Yugoslavia. We are starting from, because he's very assembling, and this is very one special movie from that perspective. It's like a Yugoslavia in a little. Because everybody works, it's creation, fabrics, but the people around the, let's say at least Yugoslavia is using that, sending letters, musician, you know, this frimärke and things like that. Without in our movies you can find a lot of collaboration, actually, because former Yugoslavian film industry was quite powerful, because Kusturica is also child of this tradition.
Yes,
if we can manage even Tito, which was also one huge fan in the film, and he actually support, if you have some idea, we had a lot of films which is partisans and Germans, you know, but they have a quite good story, well done. Marlon Brando played Tito, you know. We had Hollywood stars inside of Richard Barton, yes, sorry, and huge stars, and we made a huge star which was extra huge. And this history, I mean, and Black Wave, which is like 60s, 70s, 70s mostly, which was like questioning political situation, and this, how can I say, communistic view of our existence, which was very tough and hard, especially from the political perspective. It was something which, when I heard Nordic noir, he's like, what means Nordic noir? We have a black wave. And what is Nordic noir? There is no Nordic noir there is no black wave in the Nordic, and they put like crime, like black wave, no, because it was like a lot of, like politically active, working against the system or political statement. and now suddenly we have a Nordic noir as entertainment, like crime history genre and things like that. Okay, George, when you're thinking about Balkan movies from your perspective as both journalist and somebody who is liking a movie, I can imagine, are movie the media?
We were talking before now about the noble message or letter of
art.
Is it real noble message, and how you can separate it like as a part of you are loyal, and maybe we can, in journalists we have journalists of peace and journalists of war. And maybe in cinema too, we have cinema of war and cinema of peace. And that is the maybe kind of message, but maybe it's not informal. And for me, like when NATO or West make a war against any country, it's not only military, it's come with different dimension. And Serbia was targeting through Balkan War several times. And that was not only with bombing, it's come with Hollywood, with every culture. So when I'm looking to watch like this kind of movies, I just try to understand, to create in my mentality far of the stereotyping and framing of the Western perspective, how is the life in that Balkan area. Because if only you depend on the Western perspective and you know what West they have unleashed a war against country, you know very basic strategy of war. You are not only fighting with aircrafts and arms, you are fighting with Hollywood, you are fighting with culture, with magazine, with the news, with journalism, with everything.
With the past.
Yeah, and that great kind of stereotyping or framing for the people like from Serbia. And for me, I just wanna because I know there is different story. I'm not saying it's not true, but I just wanted to complete. I'm not saying the West you are totally wrong, but just give me the chance to see the another perspective, the different angle, like exactly what happened now in Ukrainian-Russian war. You only give us the chance to see from Ukrainian perspective.
From right perspective.
Exactly. Just give us the chance, like why in Balkan War you were supporting the people who want to be independent in Bosnia or Kosovo, but here you are supporting the central government against the people who wanted to be independent. It's the same situation, but you change. In Balkan War, you support the central, you were bombing and make fight with the central country, and you were supporting the independent people. But now, you are fighting the independent, and you are supporting the central country. So, just give us the chance. Okay, that is double standard. Okay, that is policy. But at least give us the chance to see the another side of the story. I'm not saying the opposite, but just to have the whole story. And that this kind of festival, it's a really amazing opportunity to see what I'm doing.
Yeah, George, but it is not easy, you know, because in the beginning we got the support, now it's support off because we are not like the most popular, which is a little bit pity, but I still think, and people which are here now from around the world, and people in Sweden, especially in Stockholm, where we are taking like our premier city, are still asking when we will be back, because we missed these last 3 years partly because of pandemic, and last year was not supported because probably of whole situation. So we are like a common to struggle to take our place. We have a great public here also. Do you have some ideas why is this festival important, why you are here? Gordon, Alexa, our volunteers too.
Yes, many things are already mentioned, this different perspective. And we are not giving the forgotten perspective either. we're giving the chance to all the perspectives in same place and same time.
Actually, yes, because
yes.
we are Balkan. We are putting we are thinking deeply from a selecting perspective to get all stories inside, not just one diversity.
But it is not only conflict perspectives
No.
here. And Balkans is wider. It's
Yeah.
Bulgaria, Romania, Moldavia too.
We
And
can take,
there were
yes.
some Arabic films as well.
Yes.
I don't think there are so many festivals giving all these colors of differences. And if they do, they're not very popular because they have no big sponsorship.
Exactly.
The big sponsorship is behind these big organizations giving this media picture or
Part of propaganda.
having some purpose behind. So I'm not very optimistic on this kind of presenting this society and people's connections and everything behind.
But
I'm very optimistic.
But if you widen the view a little bit, the aggression against Yugoslavia and the splitting up and crushing of Yugoslavia, you have a repeated story after the Second World War of this kind of imperialistic schemes.
Yes.
And take for instance, the Palestine. I don't think we could say it was a film festival, but I have been working in the Palestine Solidarity movement for, well, 30 or 40 years. And we arranged a couple of Palestine films, and they really point to a different view, because the Israel Zionism is very linked and supported to Jewish imperialism. Jewish imperialism has been using the Zionist Israel for very ugly purposes, and the Zionist has been beneficial of the Jewish support. So it's a very political conflict. Unfortunately today, the West, NATO, are putting all their efforts to Ukraine, and the Ukraine war is a proxy war. It's actually not a war between Russia and Ukraine. It's a war between US imperialism and Russia. So this kind of international tension is, you have a lot of them.
It's present all the time.
Yes, say Latin America, the US imperialism has intervened tremendous many times in Latin America. There have been an election in Guatemala, and back in the 50s, US threw away the legal government of Guatemala, and after that Guatemala has been many civil wars, a lot of problems as US imperialism created, as for instance in Iraq today. So there's a kind of global class struggle, and I think the splitting up of Yugoslavia is an expression for this class, in the global class struggle. So, of course, Goran, we should make festivals of different, if we can. Yes, different kind.
We're doing big job. And my point is that the public is not even prepared for Peter Hanke without turning the planet upside down. He should have been accepted as a cultural worker to show the other perspective, but the audience that is sponsored, the sponsored audience with big budgets are not prepared to accept even Hanke.
Yeah.
They react very, very in panic.
But I think Sweden was quite, we are talking about Nobel Prize 2019.
Yes.
I'm doing one play right now, Tildungs, which is about that award. But I think the Swedish part was quite calm. I was afraid that they will, deny award, because this kind of aggression, which was very present, was almost irresistible. but they know. They said once given award is eternity given award, and I was like, oh, thank you, because aggression can go quite long in this. But something which is for me more interesting, since every film is some kind of narration, it's some kind of history. How we do relating to the modern history narrations? I mean, these globalizations and probably changings, understanding of our backgrounds and where we're coming from. And is it something which is correct? You know, movie is kind of art, which is like, this is fiction, and you could do whatever you want. And we're having a bunch of movies which they're taking history and remaking and making propaganda and making own histories, which is actually make more damage to. For me, since I'm doing my research, if you do fiction, make it in fiction form. Then you have no history there. Make your own history, make your own landscape world, and run this history, which is probably liking this or that. But if you're taking what was happened, or if you're taking some historical person, can you really make a mess of that and make your own fiction just without any kind of, how can I say, punishment?
These days it's really hard to make that kind of balance between, we are living in this social media revolution, and now what we have, it's called the global citizenship, and most of us, we feel like we are more global citizens. Like for me, I come from Syria, but I have Swedish citizenship, and my people don't have a state to represent ourselves for the last 1,400 years ago. So I feel like I'm global citizen more than related. But this kind of movie, it's kind of nostalgia to the past. It's represent the idea. Like for me, every time I watch a movie, especially this kind of movie, I put myself. It's because it's come from a place like
origin.
Balkan. It's represent the Middle East in some way, endless war. So I try to put myself in a person come from that country and try to find that kind of nostalgia to my past, to my history. Is it that really, even it's not a real historical documentary, maybe even it's simple story about guy is doing girls,
family,
but it's kind of nostalgia to that past, and believe me, measuring that the power of nostalgia in that movie is also represent. I haven't had the chance to live in Balkan, but I also share them that kind of feeling, because of that land, they have enormous, endless numbers of war and civil war, and that destroy part of our ID. That why make us to be more. I stopped wanted to belong to that part, to that land. Maybe I prefer the global citizens because I wanted to forget. And this kind of movie, it's no. What about nostalgia? Let's see, maybe beautiful. So not only the movie that represent wars and even the simple stories. It represents something that of moment. Do you want to really like that nostalgia? So I hope this kind of perspective also be. It's really important, and I hope it's be more developed and appreciated in the future. And I'm totally sure. You'll be lucky to have more support for your case. Yeah,
actually, my idea is like authorship is always taking some origins, have some roots. You cannot make author's film if you are not somebody somewhere from some place with some history, because you are putting part of yourself in this movie, and something which is bothering you is coming out. It's like something which is opposite to the Hollywood. Hollywood just picking something on the surface, putting together, make entertainment and sell it. These stories are a little bit more like blood drops or suffering drops. What shall we say about Swedish movie?
Compared to what we are talking about, Balkan movies?
I don't know.
Well,
movie.
bit difficult to say. We have a shift of generation, especially of the directors of film. Many of the older have passed away and so on. Denmark and Sweden has made a lot of rather good films, and some of them has been awarded in Cannes too.
Yes, especially these last years.
Yes. It's
Ruben Östlund and Thomas Winterberg, two of them prominent.
Yes. There are examples of very good directors. Are they political? Well, to some extent, but not so much. You take the Triangle of Sadness, Ruben Östlund, that is rather political. But in general, it's most between people in social relations and so on.
And
so,
Ruben especially, we can agree there, because he's taking even political perspective in Triangle of Sadness, but also social perspectives and things like that.
So that is hopeful actually.
Yeah.
And since these films have been well recognized in the Western countries, it's also interesting actually.
International?
Yes.
Okay, Cannes and Oscar is something, but I think that they're doing well even in the rest of the world. Okay, so...
Maybe I'll do my job as journalist and ask you maybe some short questions too.
Do that.
How do you feel when you try to deliver the perspective of Balkan cinematography and the real, you say part of you in that movie, and do you have that kind of fear because you are far of the common standard of Hollywood and dominant perspective of the West, and maybe that work it's not gonna be successful because you are not following the standard of the popular standard of Hollywood and the Western perspective? To what degree make that fear to be? Is it hard to find that balance between what the message you wanted to deliver from the Balkan, but also to be accepted at universal level, which is controlled by Hollywood and Western perspective?
Is it for me?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's not a little question, it's a huge question, but I'm very calm there, because as deeper you come in the problem, so universal you come up. Because we all humans are still global. I mean, we have the same problems in this ethical, ethnical and levels that we are actually belonging, or are mixed from, I don't know, Tunisian and Japan, Africa and Sami, you know. But we all must struggle with that we are having within us. And I really think I will take this Swedish movie's last one, which is very globally taken, like Thomas Winterberg. Thomas Winterberg took a story about drinking in Denmark, which is, you know, it's the most terrible things that you have when you meet, when you come to Sweden. You should not drink, you are supposed... We are coming from Southlands, and it's like common to drink, but not to be drunk, you know. And suddenly he's taking the most sensitive subject with the males, adults, white, everything is wrong from the beginning, you know, in a, like popular politics within filmmaking. And he's winning everything. Why? Because he's picking the subject or showing exactly the problem where it lies. How the one who is in the middle of the system, which is well fed, you know, everything is functioning, actually how people are being, how can I say, smleveni, they were like smashed, and actually trying to become something else than they are. I don't know, do you see the movie Around Tower? The same is like Ruben. Ruben is more like, he's especially author, he's a Swedish author, but he's picking up the politically and socially and, how can I say, clinically right problem of the, because we will all do like that. Okay, if we all do like that, what was happening? Everybody will become crazy, actually. And this is the triangle of sadness, for example, or tourist, or square, questioning about art, which is huge art or it's just garbage. Nobody knows it's huge art or just garbage, but we are still doing a big job of that. So he's picking up this subject which is very genuine for him, and I know that he is one who is for freedom, he's against NATO, and you know, he's a very special thinker within filmmakers. For myself, I'm almost following the same pattern, and it is European film style. America is picking up the topics, put it together, jump a little bit, and selling to the world. And it's just pure entertainment, with some idea, ambition to make it art, but it is not. Because nobody's bothering about that. It is just funny, we are eating popcorn, and you're actually talking about Balkan as a place of garbage, and National Museum we are stealing there, and we are making James Bond, you know, about stupid things. I mean, there is no existing in the Balkan. I mean, they are lying. But people from small countries, can they lie? About what they will lie? I mean, even if they make fiction, if they make the worst, you know, imaginary world, they're actually all the time must deal with something which is deeply truth, actually. And that's the difference between truth and lie within filmmaking. So I think I'm not afraid, did it sell it good, if I really come to the bottom of the problem. Ruben make it in a finger spezza, you know. He really picked the subject which is incredible, you know. Yes. That's the geniality, if we are talking about he's one also who loudly say, no Bergman, Bergman time is over, thank you Bergman, but go, go back. We are now stepping with the new steps forward. So he's also a little bit crazy. I mean, in that way of thinking, changing all model of thinking about film in Sweden or film in Nordic. So Ulf's film is something which is questioning, especially European one, which since I think it's the most important to speak about movie. It's small national cinema which can come out through the authors to the rest of the world, and then you have propaganda, or I mean good selling and things like that. As Sky Over Berlin that I mentioned, Wim Wenders, just from scratch he picked up angels and people who are reading thoughts, opened the huge problem of Germany after Second World War, which is like, you know, people with like invalids, historically invalids, to continue to live their own life. And this story are living. Even not Polanski, Pawlikowski in Ida, in Holocaust in Poland. How can we deal with that? Huge, great, with easy tools, making so huge problems. Ida and Cold War, which he got, I think, Oscar and things like that. So authors film framåt, I mean, forward, and this is always will be actually future of the cinema.
You mentioned the Danish film, One More, and it's very typical. It's made in Denmark. Scandinavia is rather, the countries are really similar to each other.
Yeah,
we understand our languages and so on. But there is actually a very strong split, Denmark from the other countries. Denmark
it's
is
Europe.
No. Denmark is belonging to beer, or beer area, and Sweden and Norway and Finland is to the alcoholic.
It's like
yes, like
it's like high spirit.
So this is a typical Danish France. Shall we have one more? And then this a bottle of of beer.
Of beer, okay, they are
Yes,
less
only-
easy,
yes,
it's the
yes,
difference, okay.
Yes, that's the one.
So thank you very much for, it was really a complete answer from what I want to ask. But I always have also that question I repeated to when I meet some director, if I'm lucky enough to meet an amazing director like you in Europe, and I always have the same question. What is the best scenario for European movie industry that can compete with Hollywood? Is it like focusing on nationalists as German and Italy, or maybe finding your united European ID for movie? So do you think maybe it's like imaginary scenario, but in your mind, from your perspective, from your personal perspective, maybe 2040 or 2100, what is the scenario when the movie industry in Europe, they will have enough power to compete with Hollywood? What they should have?
Yes, they are now competing. They are always competing. Hollywood is just a copy of European movie. That's it. Now, modernism is something which is important. Modernism is something which authors film is making. It is breaking rules, genre, making new genre. It's always they are finding something else and things like that. Technician is also part of the, how can I say, prosperity of the movie, but not the same as idea. What are we talking about? So America, with their history, which is quite, how can I say, 500 years old, and history before, which is very bad, taken in the last century with Indians and cowboys. Great movies, but still very bad background, is something that they must deal with. They have a glamour, they have a great actors, they have great stories, which is running on surface, selling well, because nobody's bothering about that. But when we are coming to the bothering things, Europe is no avoiding one. There is no, there is some European authors film identity, but actually it is very French, it is very Italian, it is very German, it is very Balkan, it is very Scandinavian, and there is no equality equally signed between, and I'm not sure that will never ever be. But they made something which is European, we can say even Polish movie with Pawlikowski, which we are waiting actually from Kusturica. There are few, it is not easy from east to dive in the west. To reach the Europe from east perspective, you must be politically active. You must reach, especially the Bergman called it the demons of modernity. Because there is some subject which is like forbidden to even think, speak, forget it, make a movie, forget it, forget it, forget it. So I think there somewhere, because we are all, still we are living in Europe, all of us, these subjects are living, but somebody don't know about them, they are too young, they don't have knowledge. Somebody knows, but they don't care. Somebody cares too much, but the directors, I mean filmmakers and people who are making art, are one who can open in huge that question. I'm mentioning again Wim Wenders' Think. He, in 1987, made Wings of Desire, 88 fall, or 89 falls. Sorry, 88 come out movie, won the prize, 89 Wall is Fallen. You know, how? It was like, is it the power of this movie? You know, I was just thinking, when I was thinking, is it power that the movie did it? Well, he was like, you know, prophet, probably. But artists are one that can make a question, open the huge subject, make subject to speak. That's why we are here, that's why we made this, just to open the platform where we can open the things which is forbidden to speak outside of this wall, probably. And
my last question is about, do you think American dominate on the, for my humble perspective, they are preparing for the next generation and next by the huge ownership of the new platforms
they own like Netflix, Disney, Prime Movie, Apple. All of them, they come from Europe, so they are prepared for the next generation. Do you think European, they need something? Okay, I try to find some European series or movies on Netflix or HBO or of them, but really they represent maybe less than 5% of what you can find on those global TV network. So do you think like European need something like that to empower themselves to compete and represent themselves at the same level? Do they need something like that, or we are already have lost our war against American domination?
Ulf, do you have some answer?
Well, it's difficult to say, but the US film industry is very strong. For instance, we had 2 movies, American movies from Hollywood, which very creative people call Barbenheimer.
Mm-hmm.
It's the Barbie movie and Oppenheimer movie.
Yeah.
So, and these are the saving of Swedish cinemas.
Around the world.
Yes.
Certainly.
Well, you asked about Sweden, and especially this summer, the rain and so on. So the cinemas they had a lot of problems during the pandemic and so on, and now they are really tremendous. So there was one owner of this cinemas, and he was really looking at that. So Hollywood is very, very strong actually, and in the beginning of 60s, there was a European opposition to US, especially in France. And there is a French-German journalist, his name is Servan Schreiber, and he wrote a book about the US menace to Europe, because US imperialism was buying companies rather cheap. But today it's on the contrary. They are European countries are standing behind US like a kind of soldiers, very eager to perform every wishes of the US hegemon, as you can see in the support for Ukraine. So it's very difficult to say, but there is an opposition in the world. We can see it very clearly. In the main front is BRICS, and it's actually growing. It's very important, for instance, if BRICS will manage to
Culturally.
Yes, culture and also been a threat to the US dollar. It's very funny when people are talking about capitalism and point to US. US is the country in the world with the biggest state debt. And the only reason that they can have it because we use US dollar as reserve currency and in commercial. So if we could cripple the dollar, that would change things very, very much. And that would also affect Hollywood. But now I'm talking about
huge perspective.
20 years ahead, perhaps 15, they begin to slow down. So, well, unfortunately, we will see a lot of American movies.
Yeah, well, yes, because they have some kind of dominance.
Yes.
My briefly answer is that TV Syria will never be the movie. We can never say TV Syria as something who is threatening movie, because TV Syria is made by TV, or TV is a media. It's like stealing time. So sometimes when I watch this TV Syria, I feel that I just lose my time, and it's still entertaining. Just keep people more close to the TV, steal their time, and put them some ideas. So Syria, no life. You will find out, even ask somebody you have friends that are having these platforms, they are like filled with that in 6 months. They saw everything, and it's just repeating the same story, same. I cannot watch them because acting is so terrible that is not possible to see. So, yes, moving back to the movie. Hollywood will exist, absolutely, because money makes the world go round, but I still think that the idea is always something which is pushing that world forward. It makes it going round, but the forward is something which is real const, real art, and it belongs to the one who is rethinking existence. They will not probably have the popularity as rest of the world, will not get the money, but still the rest of the world will live for this one who is actually moving stuff forward. And it was in a past like that, and probably in the future the same. Somebody who is pioneer is some who must die. That rest will use it and make money of that. That's it. You know?
I really appreciate your honesty. You don't put it in political framing. You just say what from your heart. I really appreciate those answers.
Yeah, I'm not a politician. I must. I'm thinking like film politics more. Creativity, because politically I'm not a politician, so I don't think. Yes, I think the Russia has also huge film industry with the Syria, which can compare. But it is funny to see action movie in Russia. I mean, it's like, I would like to see more Tarkovsky. I need Dostoevsky. I need spirit to make the same as a Hollywood. You can make it double, faster, bigger, like this, but I'm not expecting, let's say, from Russia or from China to do that, but I would like to see one genuine film from China or from Japan or from Saudi Arabia or from whatever, Greece. I mean, now we are in Balkans. I really don't care. Some worse film than the worst one you see, it's the bad copy. So Hollywood is great because they anyhow has their own production, and they're like have some kind of they're not copying, they're by themselves, thinking by themselves. But bad copy is worse than worst movie. So don't do the copy, do your own. And I think the strait of the East, if we say West and East, the West is like Hollywood. Europe is somewhere in between, and East is on that level. I mean, Tarkovsky did his position as nobody else, and a lot of another filmmaker, a young Lee, what's the name of Ang Lee, and things like that. So yeah, good. I think that we must start with the next movie. Thank you so much.
It was really interesting.
Keep on working. Thank you so much.